In this example, we're asked to determine t-values, and I want to show this example in two ways. One of those ways will be using the table of areas under the t-distribution, which you can access here, and another is going to be using StatCrunch. Specifically for this video, I'm going to go through just parts A and B, because I also have a separate video that goes through parts C and D. So look through the playlist for a similar video that goes through parts C and D. So let's look at part A. It says find the t-value such that the area in the right tail is 0.02 with 17 degrees of freedom. And let's first start with this table of areas. Let me change the size a little bit so we can see better here. So again, we were told area to the right is 0.02. These areas in the right tail, and again, here's a diagram to kind of visually understand what that's meaning. Those are all listed here in this first row. And I'm looking for the value 0.02. Next, I want to find that degrees of freedom. We were told it was 17 degrees of freedom. So starting with that area, 0.02 in the right tail, I'll then scroll down until I see 17 on this side. So that first column where it says DF, this is standing for degrees of freedom, and all of these values here are those degrees of freedom that we could possibly encounter. So again, area to the right was 0.02. I scroll down that column until I get to the row that corresponds with the degrees of freedom 17, and I see my value here. It's 2.224. Same as our correct answer, 2.224. And that's how we would do this using this specific table, table 6 from our text. Now let me show you how you would do this with StatCrunch. StatCrunch has a T calculator, and we can find this underneath Stat, Calculators, and T. So let's go ahead and select that. And right now, actually the area that's being shaded is to the left, but I'm looking at this T distribution. I've got a spot here for degrees of freedom. I have the option to change the area shaded to either the left or the right. Let me move that up a little bit so you can see again. So that's to the right. Less than is to the left. I can change that X value, and I can also find that area here. So let's go back to our problem. For this problem, we want the area to the right, in the right tail, to be 0.02 with 17 degrees of freedom. So I'm going to go ahead and select 17, or type in 17 degrees of freedom for DF. I then want to change this inequality to be greater than, so I am looking at the area to the right, and I want that area to be 0.02. So notice where that goes in this probability statement. When I click compute, then I find the t-value, and rounded to 3 places behind the decimal, just the same way we see it in the table, that would be 2.224. Which when we go back to compare, that's the same thing we got with the table, 2.224. So I'm going to do the same thing in part B. I'll show the table of values, and I'll also show StatCrunch. So let's first look at the table of values here. We want the area to the right to be 0.2 with 11 degrees of freedom. So we have our areas along the top row. We have our degrees of freedom along this leftmost column. That area was 0.2, and the degrees of freedom was 11. So I'm looking at this one, 0.2, and degrees of freedom 11. So I end up right here with a t-value of 0.876. 0.876. Let's look at that in StatCrunch. Our degrees of freedom was 11. I'll erase that. And our area to the right was 0.2. We click compute, and we see that visual and we get that t-value here that is 0.876. Again, 0.876.